Bring children. We will discuss the next part of the lesson, production and employment. I hope you remembered what we discussed in the previous classes. Today, we will discuss about the two important sectors of Indian economy. They are organized and unorganized sectors. Okay. So, in order to understand these two sectors, let us examine the two different case studies given in the textbook about Rajeshwari and Narasimha. So when you have seen the textbook, Narasimha, he was a teacher. He has to be working in the government school and goes to school by 9:30. By end of has to be end his schooling by 5:30. He moves to school by bike just 5 kilometers away from home, and he has been getting salary every month, regular wages, paid leaves, paid holidays, other allowances like PF and ESI also. When the government has been giving allowances to the government employees who has been working in government sectors. Example, PF, ESI, paid leaves and paid holidays also. So in this case, what we understand, Narasimha is working in government sector. He is full of employment security. He is getting wages every month. Paid leaves are there, paid holidays, and also getting additional benefits which is provided by the government like allowances, PF and DSI. So let us examine the next case study is Rajeshwari. Actually, Rajeshwari as a construction labor, she has to work as a labor since morning 7:30 to evening 7:30, 12 hours. Then nearly 12 hours has to work as a labor continuously. If she absent to the work, no wage on that particular day, no paid leaves, no paid holidays. Generally, Sunday is a paid holiday, but no Sunday for the paid holidays for Rajeshwari because she is a construction labor as she is working in, not working in the government sector. Okay, no employment security also. Then she is very far from home to work. The workplace is very far. She used to reach the workplace by bus. No paid holidays, no paid leaves, no additional benefits like PF and ESI also. So when we have observed the two case studies of Narasimha and Rajeshwari, which person have employment security? Narasimha has employment security or not, but not Rajeshwari. So why? Because Narasimha has been working in government sector with full of employment security. He has to be enjoy the working hours. The working hours are less, and also has been getting regular wages. But when it comes to Rajeshwari, as she is working as a construction labor, she used to work more than 10 hours a day and getting the wages only for on working good. Means she has to be getting the wages on that particular days of work only. If she absent to the work, she hasn't been getting any wage for that particular day. And she hasn't been getting any additional benefits like PFO or medical facilities, nothing itself. No other allowances like Narasimha for Rajeshwari. So in this case studies, we have to understand what is organized and unorganized sector. First of all, organized sector means where the terms of employment is regular, the employment is regular. Means a person who has to be working in that organized sector has been getting the wages, including paid leaves, paid holidays. Right now, and also has to be followed the Establishment Act, the Minimum Wages Act, and Shops and Establishment Act also, and Factory Act. Okay, so the organized sector has to be followed the rules and regulations which are incorporated by the government. The government insisted, the government incorporated few rules and regulations to be followed. Organized sector. What rules and regulations are? The rules and regulations are which are clearly mentioned in the Factory Act. Shops and Establishment Act very clearly mentioned that, isn't it? That rules and regulations must be followed by the management of organized sector. Actually, government sector is the best example to organized sector because where the terms of employment is regular. Yes, no. The employer says has been working in this sector with full of, I mean, paid leaves are there, paid holidays are there, and the other allowances like PF and ESI also has to be enjoyed by the workers or the employees who have been working in organized sector. Okay. So, but when it comes to unorganized sector, there was no job security, I mean employment security, but the rules and regulations are there, but no one has to be followed. The management of unorganized sector doesn't follow any rules and regulations which were incorporated in Factory Act or Shop Standard Establishment Act. Nothing will be followed. Simple. So that is why the workers or the employees who have been working in unorganized sector doesn't get wages. Means getting the wages only on the day of work, but not yes no the work means the wages on the holidays. I mean no paid holidays, no paid leaves also. Isn't it? And also additional allowances doesn't for the employees who have been working in unorganized, like no PF and no ESI also. PF in the sense of provident fund, the fund which is given to the employees after the age of retirement. You know, the employees have to get retirement or not. Okay, when the retirement, then the employees have been getting a provident fund after the retirement. Yes, so some amount of money cuts during the time of regular days of work, that cutting amount has to give for the employees after their retirement is called provident fund. And the medical benefits also for the employees working in organized sector, but not the benefits for unorganized sector. So what you understand? What you understand about these two sectors? How you differentiate between organized and unorganized sector? Organized sector has to follow the terms and the terms of employment, follow the rules and regulations of Establishment Act, Factory Act, as well the employees in this sector has to be enjoying the employment with a full of employment security, getting the wages or the salaries every month, including paid leaves, paid holidays, right? And other allowances also eligible to get the employees who have been working in organized sector like PF, ESI. But when it comes to organized sector, the employees who have been working in the sector doesn't get any additional benefits. Okay, the employees has to be get the salaries on the days of month only. Hence, they have to follow the rules and regulations of Factory Act and Establishment Act, but that doesn't claim. Yes, no. The employer hasn't been claiming regarding their paid leaves and paid holidays. Okay, and no other allowances like PF and ESI also. So do you know 8% people or 8% employees have been working in unorganized sector. The percentage is important. Organized sector. So what is the percentage of employment in organized sector? 8% people have been working in the sector. Rest of 92% employees have been working in unorganized sector. Unorganized sector. Rest of 92%. See here, 92% people have been working in unorganized sector where there is no employment security for them. Mostly agricultural laborers, small farmers, medium farmers, right? And now casual workers, casual laborers like rickshaw pullers, painters, plumbers, comes under unorganized sector, isn't it? So then their number is 92%. They hadn't any employment security. But when it comes to unorganized sector, 80% people have been working with full of employment security. Mostly, they have been working in government sector organizations only, government sector itself, isn't it? The employees who have been working in the government sector has been enjoying the employment security with paid leave, paid holidays, and other allowances also. But their number is 8%, unfortunately. So here the government has to give support for the people or the employees who have been working in unorganized. See, 92% people are working in unorganized, but no employment security for them, no regular wages for them, no additional benefits for them like PF and DSI. Okay, so the government has to giving their biggest support to the people who have been working in unorganized sector than the organized sector. But when we have seen the contribution for Indian GDP from these two sectors is equal 50% from the organized and 50% from the unorganized. The percentage of income which is coming from these two sectors is equal. I mean, 80% of people who have been working in organized sector have been contributing 50% to GDP. 92% people have been working in unorganized also contributing 50% to GDP. Then why the same GDP has been contributed by them? Here I told you that the employees who have been working in organized sector had a regular wages. The wages or the salaries has exclaimed or claimed by the government is much better. Means they have been getting the wages according to Minimum Wages Act, Shops and Establishment Act, and also Factory Act, isn't it? So there is a flexibility given for them regarding working hours also. An employee has to be work only 8 hours a day and has been getting the wages according to the given acts. They have been exclaiming or claiming the better wages. No, that is why they have to contribute to 50% of GDP. But when we have seen the employees have been working in unorganized who are 92%, as I told you, casual laborers. You know, the labor wages, just have to imagine that small farmers, medium farmers, rickshaw pullers, plumbers, painters have to see their wages one. Are they getting regular wages? Are they getting minimum wages? No, they hasn't been getting minimum wages. That is why their number is more, but the contribution for the Indian GDP is 50%. Isn't it? So there is a table given in the textbook asked to analyze the table in the examination point of view. Okay. So the above table or the given table describes about employees of organized sector under their contribution to Indian GDP. Okay. 80% the employees have been working in organized sector has been contributing 50% to Indian GDP. 92% of unorganized sector employees also contributing 50% to Indian GDP. As I told you, why the percentage is same? The number is more, the percentage is 50. Here the number is less, the percentage is 50 here itself. Because there is a difference in the wages. Who claim? Here the employer is claiming the better wages, good wages, according to the given acts like Establishment Act, Minimum Wages Act. But here the people doesn't been getting the minimum wages, no, according to the acts. In a case study of Rajeshwari, she has been getting a work not regular days. Actually, there are 30 days in the month, but she hasn't been getting 30 out of 30 days of work days. Okay. Just in a season, she is getting the work. In a season only days. Clear? When she attends for work, she has to get the wages. If she absent to the work, no wages, that 30 days. Isn't it? So the employer has been working in another sector, doesn't be getting regular wages, hasn't been getting more days of work also. The people who have been getting more days of work, their income is good. But here, the people have to get to more than summer. But here not. There the paid is paid holidays. Here not. There the people have been getting allowances. But here no allowances like PF and DSI. So there is a tremendous difference between these two sector employees. This is the reason the number is more, the contribution is 50, the number is less in the organized, also the contribution is 50%. Okay, this is important statement. Okay, I hope you understand what is organized and unorganized sector. Okay, next let us understand how to create a better employment opportunities. Okay, how to create a better employment. How to create a better employment for the people who have been working in particularly unorganized sector. So my dear students, as I told you then, the employees who have been working under unorganized are casual laborers, okay, industrial workers, small farmers, medium farmers, landless laborers, rickshaw pullers, plumbers and painters. They need help. The government has to giving economical support to them in order to surviving. Isn't it? We'll discuss about this how to create a better employment with a beautiful example, Gayatri. Actually, in the previous class, we discussed about Gayatri and her family. Whole family has been depending on the small plot of land, but the plot doesn't require 5 out of 5 people to work over there to produce the food grains. Isn't it? The land which need to work only 3 people, 2 or 3 people only. Because the number is increased, but no additional production is coming from that land. No, the land doesn't produce if the number is increased or if the number is decreased also. So that is why for surviving Gayatri, at least 2 to 3 people work from agriculture to other sectors. For example, if the government given loan to Gayatri to dig a borewell, she has to be cultivated her small plot of land for second season. Generally, she has to be cultivated only in Kharif season, that is in rainy season only, isn't it? But not in Rabi season, because due to scarcity of water, no borewells to her, no open wells. If a government given loan to her to dig a borewell or an open well, she has to cultivate that 2 hectares of land in the second season and getting additional income also. Okay, and if the 2 people move from agriculture to other sectors like transportation, running a transport or opening an connection or running a flour mill, then this is an additional income which is generated to Gayatri family. So that is why the government of India has to look after the people who have been working in unorganized sector. They need support. They need help. What type of help they are expecting from the government is economical support only. Yes, no. The bank has to provide loan for them to open any self-employment like establishment of hotels, right? Any flour mills, or purchasing any auto, any 4-wheeler for transportation. This way, the government has to provide additional employment for the people who depends on the agriculture, who depends on the small family, so small plot of land like Gayatri. And now the government has to provide cold storages to the farmers to stop the wastage of vegetables. In general, the farmers have been selling their vegetables in the market, but not all the vegetables are selling on the particular day. So that whatever remaining the vegetables, that vegetables need to save. Okay, need to refrigerate. So if the government provided cold storages to the farmers, they have to store the vegetables for further use it is. They may sell in the next 2 days or 3 days one. The government provide cold storages for them. Right now. So if the government opened any honey collection centers near the forest areas, tribal people can be survived. Tribal people can get an income from the honey collection centers. the government open. This way, the government has to generate employment for the people who are working in unorganized sector, like laborers, agricultural laborers, okay, maybe, or else casual laborers, or else rickshaw pullers, plumbers, painters. Okay, all these people need economical support to, or need support from the government for surviving them. Okay, so this way the government has to be creating a better employment opportunities okay, for the people who are educated well or who are waiting for the jobs. You know, India is a huge populous country, right now. So generating employment in the government sector is too difficult for the government. Just imagine that the government is giving notification, yes, thousands of unemployed has to be applied for the jobs. But the jobs are very less, but the applications are more. Isn't it? So this way, the government failed to provide jobs in the government sector for all the people who are educated one, then who are graduate and postgraduate people, not all of them. That is why the government has to show an additional way or other ways to generate income by themselves by giving that bigger support, like giving loans for them. An employee there is a postgraduate one, so he needs support. Okay, if the government give a loan to him or her, he has to be open any kirana shop over there, or purchase any four-wheeler, or open a flour mill. This way, a particular person has to be generate employment and also earn income to survive himself and his family also. So this way the government has to be provided additional employment or create better employment opportunities for the people who are educated one. Clear? So this is the lesson is about production and employees. In this particular lesson, what we discussed, first of all, sectors of Indian economy, three important sectors we discussed. That is primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. This is clear for all. And we discussed about tables and pie charts regarding the GDP and the percentage of employees. This is very important. The percentage of employees in agriculture, industries, and service sector is important, right? Regarding employment, the highest people have been working in agriculture even today also. This is very, very important statement. Which of the foreign sector have been generating highest employment? Agricultural industry. Even today, 44% people who depends on agriculture, 44%. The rest of the sectors have been generating additional 66% of employment. Okay. When it comes to GDP, service sector, the fast growing sector, has been generating a better GDP compared to agriculture and industrial sector. So the student has to be compared with the three sectors of employment and also gross domestic product. Next, what is underemployment or discussed unemployment is important concept. And what is organized in unemployment sectors and how to create a better employment opportunities. Okay, these are the concepts in this particular lesson. Okay, so my dear students, let's start another important lesson today. That is lesson number 4, climate of India. Fourth lesson, climate. See, in order to understand climate, first of all, we need to discuss about differences between weather and climate. Okay. First of all, you need to know about elements of weather and climate. First of all, what are the elements of weather and climate? Elements of weather and climate. So, what are the elements? Are first one, sunshine, temperature, humidity, clouds, wind, precipitation. See, what are the elements of weather and climate? One more question. Elements are, what are they? Sunshine, temperature, humidity, clouds, wind, and precipitation are elements of weather and climate. Right? No. Fourth lesson, right now. So these are the elements of weather and climate. Have to remember that. Once again, what are the elements of weather and climate? Sunshine, temperature, humidity, clouds, wind, precipitation, and the atmospheric pressure also. Atmospheric pressure. So these are the elements of weather and climate. They will define what is weather and climate. So what is weather and climate? First of all, weather. So weather means a state of atmospheric condition. A state of atmospheric condition over an area for a particular time refers to weather. Here, what is weather? Weather means a state of atmospheric condition. This weather can expressing the state of atmospheric condition. What is the condition of atmosphere? Whether it is sunshine or temperature there, humidity or cloudy, or a wind is blowing, or rain is falling, or there is a pressure like low pressure or high pressure. Yes, no. See, when we have been defining what is weather, we have to use these elements. So, my dear students, weather means a state of atmospheric conditions over an area with these elements like sunshine, temperature, humidity, clouds, wind, precipitation, atmospheric pressure over an area for given time. For a given time is called weather. Only for short period of time. For example, so sometimes you may observe in the atmosphere in the morning there will be sunshine, but by afternoon it may be cloudy, by evening may rain, isn't it? So this, what is happening? The elements of weather can be changes within short period of time. You know, the day temperature is more than the night temperature. You know, so why the two differences happens? Because this is nothing but a weather change. But climate doesn't be changed for a short period of time. It has to be changed over 30 years of time. We'll discuss about the climate later on. You have seen in the news regarding weather reports, but not climate report. The news channel can be telecasting about weather report only, but not climate, because the weather can be changes within a short period of time. That is a day to day itself. The morning temperature may not record by afternoon. Afternoon temperature may not record by evening. It may cloudy in the morning, may not by afternoon. Maybe rainfall by evening itself. So then the elements of weather and climate can be changes within the short period of time. I hope you understand. The best example is cloudy in the morning, but cloud free by afternoon, rainy by evening. So these things, these elements can be fluctuate within the short time. During the time of day can be fluctuated, but not for a long period of time it is. See, weather means a state of atmospheric condition. It can be expressing the condition of an atmosphere. Right now, the temperature. Right now, how the atmosphere is, whether it is cloudy or else cloud free, how the humidity is in the atmosphere, what is the temperature of right now. So this way we have to estimate the present atmospheric condition by using these elements of this. Their elements are important to expressing about what is weather. Otherwise, we can't express, isn't it? So that's what I'm telling you, that weather means a state of atmospheric condition over an area of these elements for a short period of time is called weather. Short period of time. I hope you understand. Clear? Next, let us understand what is climate mean. Climate also is state of atmospheric condition. It also expressing about the state of atmospheric condition, but not a short period or a long period of time, over 30 years, a larger area it is. So this can be expressed in over a smaller area like Ramagundam only. Today Ramagundam temperature, that's it, but not entire Telangana itself or entire the nation itself. But climate can expressing about the temperature of entire India. That is, we have to take monthly average temperature, either minimum or maximum temperatures. Or we have to take the rainfall of that particular year itself. Year rainfall it is during the rainy season. Here, climate can expressing, or when we define climate, a state of atmospheric condition with these elements, but not a short period, but for a long period of time, over 30 years of age. Over 30 years, this is important statement. This is short time. Within the day will be fluctuate, but the climate doesn't fluctuate within the short period of time, but may or may not fluctuate over 30 years. Best example, India has been enjoying or explaining seasons, you know that, like summer after rainy season comes, rainy after winter comes. So this cycle repeating every year, once every 4 months, we have to enjoy one season, once every 4 months without fail. And how many years we have been getting these seasons? So far, over 30 years or not. This is the best example to express what is climate. Isn't it? So in climate also we have to use the same elements. What are they? Sunshine, temperature, humidity, clouds, precipitation, all these elements we have been using. But when we talk about clouds, we have seen the clouds during rainy season. Then next 2 seasons are. In summer, winter season, may not see the clouds in the sky. Very rare. But in rainy, every day it is. Maybe in the morning or afternoon or evening itself. But we have seen the clouds in the sky. But this has been continuing over 30 years of time. Okay. So, climate means a state of atmospheric conditions over a large area for a long period of time is called climate. Weather means a state of atmospheric condition over an area, over a given area and a given particular time refers to weather. So the student has to be analyzed or understand the differences between what is weather and what is climate. But both can be expressed about state of atmospheric condition only. The condition of present atmosphere, whether it is whether it is cloudier, whether it is humidity, whether it is any precipitation, means high pressure, low pressure. So this way we have to analyze that atmospheric condition with this two definitions like weather and climate. Okay. Next, so what are climographs? Climographs. See, the pattern of weather and climate can be shown in pictures. Generally, climographs are the pictures. But what are climographs can be defined? The pattern of weather and climate. The pattern of weather and the climate can be shown on pictures. Can be shown on pictures called as Planographs. It's very important for 2 marks. So my dear students, so what is climograph mean? The pattern of weather and climate now there is not the delete kane sir. You have idea? Yes sir. See, the pattern of weather and climate can be shown on pictures called as climographs. With the help of climograph, we can analyze the day and night temperatures and the summer and winter temperatures. Hence, the monthly average temperature, monthly average rainfall of a distribution, we can express it with the help of climographs. So in a textbook, there was few climographs given to understand about Chennai, Delhi, right? Jaisalmer, Jaipur. The climographs given that. The graph can be expressing about regarding what the minimum and maximum temperatures and rainfall of that particular area or the particular state can be expressing with the help of these climographs. So once again, what are climographs? Climographs are the graphs can be expressing the pattern of weather and the climate. The pattern of weather and climate can be shown on pictures called as climographs. Right? So let us moving on. So climatic controls of the factors influencing climate and the weather. So this is important for 8 marks. So factors influencing climate and the weather. Yes. So there are 4 factors can be influence the climate and weather. 4 factors, right? Each factors will get 2 marks, 4 to the 8 marks. Okay. First factor is about latitude, distance from the equator. Distance from the equator. So latitude and distance from the equator. So let us see the work Earth. You know the Earth is spherical in shape or not? So due to spherical shape of the Earth doesn't mean getting the same amount of energy from the sun. Means no place is upon the surface can't receive the same amount of energy from the sun because it is spherical in shape or not. So due to spherical shape of the Earth, that all the countries in the world hasn't been getting the same amount of energy and recording the same temperature. Means so there was the temperature variation we have seen across the countries in the world. So why the temperature variations are? Because this is the reason it is. You know the shape of the Earth is spherical. So then where the Earth is a bubble, there the temperature is more. Yes, no. And as we are moving towards the north and south also, the temperature has been drastically falling. So this is the reason the north and south poles covered snow always. Isn't it? And now, based on the receiving temperature from the sun, the Earth can be divided into 3 zones. What are they? First one, tropical zone. Tropical zone. Next, temperate zone. Right now, temperate. Next, polar zone. So, my dear students, based on the receiving solar radiation from the sun, or based on the temperature which is received by the Earth from the sun, the entire Earth can be divided into 3 zones: tropical, temperate, and the polar zones. Yes, no. See, tropical zone is hotter than temperate polar because tropical zone, which is nearby the equator, has been receiving highest amount of solar radiation from the sun, and also the intensity of temperature is more at the lower latitudes. See, the intensity is nothing but the sun rays falling upon the tropical belt is very vertical, isn't it? So due to vertical, when falling of the sun rays upon the earth's surface, the earth's surface can be receiving highest amount of solar radiation. So the countries which are nearby the equator, what are they? Almost the tropical countries nearby the equator. These countries have been receiving highest amount of temperature from the sun. So you understood that the countries nearby the equator is hotter than the countries far away from the equator. Best example, Indonesia. Indonesia is the best example, right now. Where is Indonesia situated? It is very nearby the equator. So then this country has to record highest temperature than the countries which are far away from the equator. Okay. Next, as we are moving towards the north pole and the south pole, the sun rays falls upon the surface very slantly or not. So due to this slant position, the northern and the southern countries means the intensity of temperature becoming reducing, decreasing as we are moving towards to north from the equator. Right now, as we are moving from the equator towards two poles, so the temperature drops. Okay, why? Because as I told you just now, the sun rays falls upon the surface very slanted. Due to slanted. Here the sun rays falls upon the surface very vertical with a 90-degree angle. So what you understand? You understood that the intensity of temperature is more at the lower latitudes than the upper latitudes. Okay, so temperature can be seen based on the intensity only. Intensities. Where the intensity is more, there the temperature is higher. So, as we are moving towards to north or south poles, obviously temperature has been dropping or not, decreasing or not, because the rays falls upon the surface very slanted due to this position. And one more best example, India. India lies in two belts. Northern part of India comes under temperate belt. Southern part of India comes under tropical belt. Obviously, tropical belt is hotter than the temperate. So here, southern part of India is hotter than northern part of India. Right now, and the southern part of India is nearby the equator. So when we have taken the example of Bhopal and Kanyakumari, Kanyakumari is hotter than Bhopal. Why? Because Kanyakumari is nearby the equator, Bhopal is far away from the equator. As I told you just now, the countries nearby the equator are hotter than the countries far away from the equator. Here, Kanyakumari is nearby the equator than the Bhopal. Obviously, so Kanyakumari experiences what type of climate it is? Moderate climate, even though it has been experiencing highest temperature itself. Because India lies in two belts, tropical belt and temperate belt. So which part of India comes under tropical belt? Northern part of India comes under temperate, southern part of India comes under tropical belt. As you well know, based on the receiving solar radiation from the sun, that can be divided into three zones: tropical, temperate, and polar zones. You know, tropical zone is hotter than the temperate polar zones because the sun rays falls upon the tropical zone is vertical than the poles, than the temperate zone. So there is a wide variation in the receiving of solar radiation from the sun. When we have to compare with our country lies in two belts, tropical belt and temperate belt, isn't it? So tropical in the sense northern part of India comes under tropical belt, southern part of India comes under temperate belt. So due to this reason, what happens? As we have to see the temperature of South India is more than the northern part of India. Clear? So when we compare the two parts of India, north and south, and when we have to understand the two important cities like Kanyakumari with Bhopal, which is hotter? Kanyakumari is hotter than Bhopal because Kanyakumari is nearby the equator than the Bhopal it is. Okay. So according to latitude distance from the equator, lower latitudes has been experiencing highest temperature than the upper latitudes. Okay, so this is the best example to understand what climate and weather will be influenced. I hope you understand. This is an important factor which can be influenced climate and weather. So, my dear students, tomorrow in the class we'll discuss about next 3 important factors right now. Thank you all. Have a nice day.